monster! You don't belong in this world!
With that reference sent back to the grave, at long last, the whip-wielding warrior Simon Belmont joins the battle. Wait, who? Yes, the members of the ever-enduring Belmont clan of vampire hunters, and the inheritors of the legendary vampire killer Whip. It is their duty to strike down Dracula and his demonic minions whenever they might arise, using their signature arsenal of divine weaponry ranging from a cross with the utility of a boomerang and a deliciously explosive holy water. These guys are what you call legacy characters, being announced in a Nintendo Direct with a whole segment highlighting their movesets, as well as a snazzy CGI trailer where Luigi died! Sakurai later claimed these big, and I do mean big, fellas were added due to the Smash ballot. Sort of a trend around here.
But to many of you youngins, you see this and you're like, Simon, Richter, Castlevanias, what is any of this? The last game that released was in 2014, Lords of Shadow 2, and that wasn't even on a Nintendo console. So it really begs the question, why did they bring Simon and Richter to Smash, and what makes them such a fitting addition to the Smash roster?
Some video game genres are inarguably tied to different series. If someone talks about JRPGs, Final Fantasy. Modern hack and slash, oh, put those onions away, the devil may cry. But do these series actually have a genre named after them? Enter Metroidvania games. Yes, very original. These are platformers all about exploration with item upgrades and tons of backtracking. The two that popularized this series are go-to classics, Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Sure, there are many similar games that came before them, but most fans and developers will point to these two as the pinnacles of the genre. That alone shows Castlevania is pretty up there with the greats of retro gaming. But Simon and Richter actually originate from an older type of Castlevania game, the tough-as-nails platformers, ugh. Castlevania originated on the NES in 1986, with Simon as the protagonist. And don't jump out of your seats, yes, it's kind of dated, but it based an entire franchise, and for good reason. It was so successful that Simon actually appeared in the Captain N comic series alongside Mega Man and Kid Icarus. And Mega Man. And oof, at least they got the chin right. The series went on to spawn over, holy moly, 30 titles! And the majority of them were on Nintendo consoles until later. Simon is kind of like Mega Man in that way, a character that isn't technically owned by Nintendo, but is so heavily associated with the 8 and 16-bit Nintendo era that he gets an honorary Nintendo family pin. He's the most recurring protagonist in the series, starring in Castlevania 1 and 2 on the NES, and Super Castlevania 4 on Super Nintendo. And then, Richter. Odd choice, but I mean, I'll take it. He debuted in the PC Engine CD title Rondo of Blood. What the hell's a Rondo? But a version of that game came to the SNES as Dracula X. But he played a pivotal role in the landmark title Symphony of the Night, which also wasn't on a Nintendo console. But seriously, like, Castlevania fans, who else would you have really wanted as an Echo? Would you want Richter Schneider from Castlevania 64? Castlevania 64? Get this guy out of my face.
And now we're going to be moving on to the moves, and just like Simon and Richter's triceps from all that axe throwing, it's quite the meaty section.
Right out the gate, these guys are like a Castlevania sandwich. Right down to the moves and their appearances. They have loads of references and inspirations built into their muscly, holy bodies. Richter, for example, is almost one-to-one with his design from Rondo of Blood. He even plucked and tucked different references in here too, such as the white trim on his coat coming from Dracula X, and the white buttons and interior coming from Dracula X Chronicles. Simon is a little more complicated though. He had a few interesting appearances. A barbarian in Castlevania 1, a blonde knight in Castlevania 2, a surprisingly handsome red-haired warrior in the PSX version of Castlevania Chronicles, and something in Castlevania Judgment. There's some Judgment going on here for sure. But his Smash appearance takes more from his classic barbarian look, thankfully. It's a brand new design that takes elements from a variety of sources. Chiefly the NES Castlevania, but also on the box art for Castlevania for the X68000, it's pretty similar, with a little bit of this Simon figurine mixed in for good measure. Funnily enough, it's actually really close to the Simon design in the 2018 mobile game, Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. But it's hard to tell which design came first. One of the most appealing things about Simon Belmont, and I guess Richter now, before they were revealed, was just how easy it was to imagine their movesets. In the games, you whip what you don't like, you keep them away, and master the many sub-weapons all to tackle any enemy. Or you get hit into a pit, that too. First, let's talk about the whip. It brings with it unique physics and a reach that reigns unmatched amongst all other Smash characters. starting with their iconic whip strike in the forward tilt that's basically in every game. It mainly takes root from Simon's first game in that whipping animation, and the motion closely matches the same way most of the Belmonts attack in the other 2D Castlevania titles. We can also see this in the forward aerial, which was used as early as the first game as well. The forward smash reaches even further, and while it isn't based on anything particular, it is similar to some of the more vigorous whip attacks from the 3D Castlevania games. Their neutral air doesn't seem to have an exact origin, but if we look at 2013's Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Mirrors of Fate, I love titles. We can see him using the whip in a similar fashion for many of his combos. But when we say you get the full whipping experience, whew, Simon and Richter deliver. You can angle your smash attacks with the whip, twirl it on the ground in the down smash, fling it straight up into the air in the up smash, and do it in your aerials. You can fling it up, back in the back air, and trust me, as awesome as this would be to be able to do this in the Castlevania games, you can't do it in the Castlevania games. We do get a snippet of this whip control in what many consider to be Simon's finest outing, Super Castlevania 4. But Richter was never able to use the whip in this way. Just be thankful you're here, big guy, alright? A few other moves use the whip as well. Their neutral attack is this jab combo, while holding the chain in their left hand. It doesn't have much in the way of sources in any Castlevania game, but a neat touch is that if you just hold the attack button, the whip dangles loosely so you can hit stuff like projectiles and whip it in any direction. Look at it go! This is another iconic move from Super Castlevania. And while Richter couldn't do this in his debut appearance Rondo of Blood, he apparently learned it in time for Symphony of the Night. Alright, but we've talked about the attacks with the whip. What about the whip itself? At first you may be like,
Alax, are you gonna overanalyze a whip?
yes. Smash has a totally unique depiction of the vampire killer whip. Usually it's shown as a leather whip, but on many other occasions, a chain whip with a morning star on the North American Super Castlevania box art. But more importantly, all the cutscenes with Richter from Rondo of Blood. So is this the only place it's inspired from? Not so fast! Look at that cross guard on the hilt! That's definitely from Lords of Shadow! Mystery solved. Except, maybe there's one more source we haven't checked yet. This is Konami after all, so enter the pachinko business. Castlevania erotic violence. Boom. There it is. Now let's never talk about this again, alright? Anyways, not all the Belmont's attacks use the whip. These other attacks, most of them classified as martial arts in the Castlevania games, are what Richter bring to the table. Simon and Richter's dash attack is tackle, also known as the blade attack. They charge forward shoulder first, while whipping their chain around them. This move is first used by Richter in Symphony of the Night. Their down tilt, the slide jump, also made its debut in Symphony of the Night. In that game, just like in Smash, it's a damaging two-part attack that starts with a regular slide and ends with a slippy slidey kick arcing upwards. Their down air attack is a basic dive kick. This move first appeared in Symphony of the Night as well, but it was not part of Richter's kit. This ability was actually used by Alucard when he had the fist weapons equipped. Don't chuck your garlic just yet, as this move actually may be traced to a Belmont first. Simon's grandson, Just. Just what? That's just his name? In the GBA title, Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance. But if this isn't enough, Simon and Richter actually used it in 2010's Castlevania Harmony of Despair, so the move really fits both of them.
Now let's get on to their specials, or as I like to call them, their entire moveset.
The Castlevania franchise features a wide variety of sub-weapons, many of which you'll see in Smash over and over and over and over again. Their most iconic, however, come from the first game of the series, Castlevania on the NES. It features the axe, stopwatch, dagger, holy water, and cross. And I mean, 3 out of 5 isn't that bad to make it into Smash. I don't think anyone's losing their marbles over the dagger either. For their neutral special, the Belmont boys launch an axe into the air in an arc. Just like in Castlevania, this attack helps cover incoming aerial enemies and packs a heavy punch. However, unlike in the games, the trajectory can be controlled by holding forward or back to throw the axe further or closer. Their down special is Holy Water, an attack that has Simon and Richter throw a bottle of holy water onto the ground, igniting on impact. The item can be caught or deflected by your enemies, but if it's connected to the ground or your opponent, it will burst into flames, lasting several seconds, trapping any soul whoever dares defy it. It's PK Fire, but holy. Cool move, but I thought it only trapped evil things. It's holy water after all, so why is it hurting Pichu? Got something to tell us, buddy? Now, the Holy Water is one of the few attacks that differentiate Simon and Richter. Richter's is blue and counts as an aura attack, while Simon's is red and registers as fire, which seems minute and like it doesn't matter, but it does change a few matchups. It should be noted in the Castlevania games that it comes in 2 varieties, such as Simon's, where it burns in one place as a pillar, which we see in Smash, and this other one, from Richter's appearances where it moves horizontally across the ground, and I'm glad we don't have to have that one in Smash. Cross is the Belmont side special. This holy boomerang attack includes a smash input version that covers more ground and does higher damage. Now, it's unique amongst boomerangs in Smash since, like in Castlevania, it always moves in a straight line back and forth no matter where Simon and Richter end up. Then their quote-unquote recovery, the uppercut. This originates from Symphony of the Night, and it's not the best for recovering, but luckily you can tether recover with forward or back air with the chain. Or off a Pikmin.
I understood that reference.
Now, this doesn't make up for their overall bad recovery, obviously, but it does give them options and is game accurate to Simon's whip abilities in Super Castlevania 4. Finally, we have the Belmont Final Smash. Grande Cross. This is one of Richter's super moves, called Item Crashes from Rondo of Blood, although Simon up until now has not used it himself. And now, everyone's favorite segment, and probably DukeOfDorks' least. Looking at clothes and stuff. Now, the Belmont alt colors aren't as clean-cut as most, but there are some interesting possible origins for most of them. Let's take a look. Simon's red alt is a reference to Castlevania 2, specifically to the sprite. It would have been nice to get some black leggings or pants to complete the look, but hey, it's something. Coincidentally, this is also the same color scheme as Gabriel Belmont from Lords of Shadow, as his armor also took inspiration from Simon's quest. Yellow does resemble fake Trevor's sprite from Symphony of the Night, but it's probably meant to represent Simon's North American box art for Super Castlevania 4. Black seems to be based on this red-haired Simon, Ayami Kojima's redesign in Castlevania Chronicles, without the red hair. Why? It could also be a throwback to the sprite color from Simon's other 1986 adventure, Vampire Killer on the MSX. Blue is a rather faithful recreation of the color scheme from the Japanese box art for Super Castlevania 4. And purple is a weird one. I suppose it sorta resembles the werewolf character Cornell from the N64 Castlevania Legacy of Darkness, but I seriously doubt Sakurai would reference that game. It could very well be based off this crude artwork for the doppelganger Simon found on the wall of Castlevania Chronicles, but super obscure, I know. And orange, one of my favorites, it seems to be representing Simon's original 8-bit sprite, and you know, simpler is better. Finally, indigo. It relates to the doppelganger, harkening back to Castlevania 3. Alright, that was for Simon, but what about Richter? This is probably a reference to Richter's palette-swapped rival in the cancelled 32X sequel to Rondo of Blood, but it is more likely just a reference to another Belmont, the magically inclined Just. It could even be meant to mirror Christopher Belmont's sprite in Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. Purple isn't often associated with the Belmonts, but maybe this is a nod towards the Dark Priest Shaft, who was a major player in Symphony of the Night. This one resembles the Curse's status from Rondo of Blood and Dracula X. But the colors actually happen to relate to a fan-favorite character, Richter's vampire-hunting sister-in-law, Maria Renard in Symphony of the Night. Yellow resembles the color scheme of several whip-wielding warriors, such as John Moores and Julius Belmont. Blue is back to the basics. This costume may not seem different from his default threads, but this is a callback to his slightly different palette in Symphony of the Night and Dracula X Chronicles, however. And black. I heard people say that this is supposed to emulate the credit sequence in Dracula X, but the dark black and yellow trim makes me pretty confident to say that this is Symphony of the Night Alucard, or at least a reference. And finally, white. This is a nod to the progenitor of the Belmont clan, Leon Belmont. Just wish they made Richter blonde here, but whatever. Oh, God. Can we just have a moment to get everyone back together? I know it was a lot of talking, so DukeOfDorks, you can go haywire. Aww. And if you thought we were through, we're not. There are a load more references, not just in the moves. It seems they crammed every sort of reference to Castle and Veins into these guys. Speaking of, can we talk about this walking animation finally? Oh, it's amazing, the Belmont strut. It is a defining characteristic for all the characters since the debut on the NES. It's like it's genetic. All of them do it. It's a rite of passage to be a vampire hunter. Keeps vampires and women away. Hell, even their crawl animation looks super identical to Simon's squatted walk from Super Castlevania 4. And the idle animation. It's identical to Richter's conversation stance. A stance made famous by this notorious meme. And even when you're goofing on your rivals, there's tons of fan service. Simon's up and side taunts are a bit on the generic side. But his down taunt, where he snaps the whip, is very evocative of the intro of Super Castlevania, where he faces a castle and does a similar action. But all of Richter's taunts? All clear references to his games. Richter's down taunt has him tightening his glove, just like he did in the animated intro of Rondo of Blood. And his Saiton has him pulling the whip just like the promotional art in the Rondo of Blood strategy guide. His Upton has him strike a pose from the Rondo of Blood box art too, which also happens to be his official Smash render. Simon's render is similarly his NES Castlevania box art. Just turn your head around so we can see you. Richter does the same taut chain action as his Saiton in one of his victory animations, with the added benefit of him shouting his famous Symphony of the Night line.
You don't belong in this world!
Oh, I feel right at home. The best victory pose, however, is the one where he faces the camera and gives a peace sign. Another reference to Rondo of Blood's cutscenes. Now, all three of Simon's victory animations have some neat meaning. In one of them, he claims to have vanquished the darkness.
I vanquished the darkness!
Which sounds an awful lot like the text that would appear on screen during the night-to-day transition in Simon's Quest, but it wasn't Simon's best. Another pose has him lash out with his whip and end it in a stance that seems very similar to the promotional art for Castlevania Chronicles. Now, the most hardcore of references comes from the animation where Simon grabs the magic red orb. This is exactly how every stage in the first Castlevania would end. The really interesting touch to this in the animation is what happens after that. Simon just stays in place whipping, jumping. This is because that would happen in the original game too if you held down the A and B buttons after collecting the orb. Utterly hilarious, but based on his origins.
Oh my god! I don't think I've covered a character with this many references back to back in their costumes, in their moves, just whittled. All these references to Castlevania. But it's actually pretty cool that they managed to do this for a character, and they like to do this for their guest characters, but the one last thing we gotta check is their design and how that was communicated, and I'm so sorry for the cat walking back and forth.
Simon and Richter really take from Castlevania in every way. It's really easy to see that, like other guest characters, prioritizing representation in every one of their movements was the main goal for them. We've taken a look at an ungodly amount of references littered within their moves. But what about how they play? Well, it's no surprise that giving them all the tools they use in their game made them feel more like you were playing the games in Smash. Each of these items functions as you'd expect for the characters. Sakurai really managed to make you feel like you were playing Castlevania. There, you need to learn your weapons' abilities, their spacing, and the enemies you're going up against if you want to stand a chance. On the flip side, the Belmonts in their games have horrid air and ground control, though they boast being tanks when it comes to taking damage. And I can't make it up, Smash Bros. Echoes this perfectly. Speaking of, these characters, they have some of the most contrasting opinions online as to how good or bad they are. I, for one, think they have the tools to be extremely oppressive and really good in the meta of Smash Bros. Just, it's much harder to do with them and more orthodox compared to your handful of rushdown characters in Ultimate. Simon and Richter play an entirely different game from any other Smash character, except maybe Olimar. You have to commit to your attacks and your jumps. In Castlevania, the horror aspect came from the limiting controls, and it was all about spacing, timing, and a sense of rhythm. You need to know exactly how far away you are from an enemy to attack, while staying safe yourself. Simon, Richter, and the rest of the clan are consistently strong fighters, but even they can be overwhelmed in their games. Such as if you get an enemy too close to you, your whole game could be thrown off. And the last place you'd want to be is on the edge of a platform and a Medusa head flying by. You don't know infuriation until you play those old NES games. And Smash captures all of that perfectly. You really feel powerful as the Belmonts. If you play them correctly, you feel like a wall of pain that your enemies just can't touch. But if you slip up or they slip past your defenses, the Belmonts are surprisingly fragile. That's Castlevania to a T. It's hard. These characters are not easy to master, and for a little while, I suspect players will think these guys are worse than they are. But give it time, and I'm sure one player with an unbreakable amount of patience will take these characters to the limit and really annoy you online. And it will be the worst, just like Castlevania.
Folks and folkettes, that is it for this Know Your Moves. I know it was a longer one, so thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end, and it may have not been on the funnier side of them, but we really only get one chance at doing a comprehensive analysis of the entire moveset of Simon and Richter, and I'm glad we gave it the justice I think it deserved. A huge thank you, huge to Spazzy for a lot of the knowledge and facts and sourcing on this video. I really wouldn't have been able to give it the attention if not for him and the writing of this script, as well as a shadow link for a lot of the footage that you saw in this video. Me and DukeOfDorks were not obviously the biggest Castlevania fan, but we really wanted to give it our best shot, as doing the Know Your Moves is only a once in a, I guess we can redo them, but I'd rather do it right the first time. But with that said, I think we got the hardest Know Your Moves out of the way early, and I'm really glad to get onto some of the other new characters and the new DLC characters like Joker. I'm so excited to get into all his moves. I've been already writing it and it's not even out yet, and I'm so excited to talk about Joker.
Oh, that's just perfect.
precious.